Stress-free downwind cruising in the trades. Trade wind sailing is glorious, but working on the foredeck in mid-ocean in 15 knot plus winds when depowered while shortening sail is a character building experience. The popular downwind rig is wing on wing, with the Genoa sheeted on a pole rigged with the pole uphaul, downhaul and preventer, and the mainsail on the other side also with a preventer and sometimes a downhaul. The advantage of this setup is it is initially cheap. You are making use of what you have got. The disadvantages are numerous. The mainsail, the most expensive sail on board, will be liable to chafe on the cross trees and shrouds. The main sheet may chafe on the handrails. If you haul in the main to avoid chafe, then you are more prone to running by the lee. Full-length battens are good, but can be broken by the shrouds on a run, and also with batten pocket chafe. To reef the main requires a large alteration of course and probably furling the Genoa. Wing on wing promotes the dreaded pendulum roll. Holding a course close to downwind without backing the main is stressful. Deck work involved in reducing sail is stressful. The stress-free downwind rig is the Twizzle Rig, which we used with success crossing oceans, overcomes these disadvantages. The advantages of the Twizzle Rig are no chafe. Sail can be quickly reduced or increased by one person in the cockpit. It helps dampen pendulum rolling. Easily trimmed to sail safely with the apparent wind up to 30 to 40 degrees each side of dead astern. The disadvantages are 2 poles are required. 2 same-size jibs are required. A double grooved furling foil or the jibs sewn to a common luff tape. Less sail area is set. We read a few articles on the Twizzle Rig dating back to 1971 and investigated various suppliers of costly Twizzle Rig equipment, which we later found out to be unnecessary. Two jibs of similar size. They need to furl on a single foil, so no problem if your furling foil has double grooves. With a single groove, the 2 jibs need to be sewn to a single luff tape. Yes, you could use hank jibs, but then the easy reefing option is lost. 2 poles, each about 15% longer than the length of the mitre seam of the jibs. If you are having new sails made, then the length of the poles is governed by the ability to stow them. We bought a second-hand jib close to the shape of our number 1 jib and sewed them together. Clews need to be cut high to prevent catching a wave on a roll. A universal joint joining the inboard end of the poles with uphaul and downhaul. This system is where the Twizzle equipment suppliers had a field day and produced expensive, intricate stainless products. More on our development of this item later. The universal joint was held up just forward of the mast by the spinnaker pole topping lift and held down and forward by a downhaul run to a block near the bows, then run back to a cleat on the mast, but preferably in the cockpit. The bowline of the downhaul to the universal joint was left with a long fall, which was left slack cleated to the mast. This prevents the universal from popping forward with the poles V'd aft instead of forward, and so stopping the Twizzle jibs furling. As we had a dedicated furling foil for the Twizzle jibs, they had dedicated jib sheets led aft to the sheet winches in the cockpit. The inner furling foil carried the Genoa. On our 40-foot ketch, the jib clews, when furled, were too high to reach at sea, So to run the end of the poles out to the clews, a light outhaul attached to the clew was run through the end fitting and back to a cleat on the pole. Rig the downhaul, block and strop at the bows. The strop raised the block so that the line aft cleared the windlass and open forehatch. Attach the universal joint to the uphaul and downhaul and leave slack on the deck by the mast. Unfurl the jibs a turn or two to make sure the jibs are the correct side and sheets and outhauls are clear. Lead the sheets to the sheet winches. Take the first pole. Clip the outhaul into the pole end fitting and run the pole up to the clew. The bowline on the outhaul, made off to the clew, will prevent the pole going right to the clew, but will be near enough. Make off outhaul to the cleat on the inboard end of the pole. Clip the pole to the universal joint. Rest the end on deck and lightly lash to the mast to prevent the pole end flailing about. Depending on the length of the poles, the universal will usually be aft of the mast at this stage. Repeat for the other jib and pole. Both poles are now fore and aft. Raise the universal joint and tension the downhaul till the universal joint is clear ahead of the mast and at a height above the level of the clews. To achieve this, the jibs may need to unfurl some more. Make off the universal joint preventer with enough slack to allow the universal joint to swing athwartships. Haul in on the jib sheets evenly while easing out the jib furling line. This is easier with two crew. With both jibs spread, the Twizzle rig is now set. Trimming the Twizzle rig. The poles should be sloping down and V'd forward to the clews. The jibs can be set up to 30-40 degrees or so each side of a dead run. Just ease the windward sheet and harden the leeward sheet a foot or two as one would do with a spinnaker. Reefing the Twizzle rig. As the wind freshens, the jib sheets can be eased and the jibs rolled up. No big adjustment is required to the up or down haul. The poles simply V more. Reefing can continue from the cockpit till just a pair of ears are showing, V'd downwind like a dart, which gives excellent directional stability in a blow. Basically the opposite of setting the rig. Ease sheets and roll up the jibs from the cockpit till the poles are roughly fore and aft. Go on deck and lower the universal joint to the deck. Lightly lash the universal to the mast to stop the poles rolling about. Release one pole from the universal, let off the outhaul and run the pole aft. Unclip the outhaul from the pole end and stow the pole. Sheet in a bit to stop the jib ear flapping. Repeat for the other pole. Ease sheets and fully roll up the Twizzle jibs. Go to the bows and clear away the downhaul. Coil up the sheets and outhauls and stow on the pulpit, port and starboard. Make fast the uphaul and stow the universal joint with the downhaul and preventer. Development of the universal joint. It is essential that the pole ends can articulate angularly and axially. The pole ends will naturally want to cross over. Any design with fixed cups is not good. Our Mark I crucifix was based on articles we had read. A stainless bar with 2 rings for up and down hauls and 2 bolts on lugs to clip the poles on. It failed almost immediately, distorting the pole end fittings as the pole ends tried to cross over. Mark II was Mark I fitted with rope loops to allow the pole ends to lie naturally. However, the Mark I bolts chafed the poles. Apart from that, it was used with success for a few thousand miles. Mark III crucifix was a simple rope knot, tied and sewn to form 4 loops. Cheap, simple, easy to repair or replace. It was used for several thousand miles with no damage at all. General comments. You will see how the surface of the sea is dappled by the downforce off the jibs. This indicates a good lifting force to the bows. It has been written that the Twizzle Rig stops all rolling. This is not true. What it does stop is the dreaded continuous pendulum rolling of a main and jib goose-winged or twin jibs poled out from the mast. The yacht will roll as it drops off a cross-swell, but the Twizzle Rig dampens it after 3 or 4 swings, with the universal joint swinging across the deck, spilling some wind from one jib and then the next. However, we did find that at exactly 4.8 knots, the rolls would continue far longer, up to 10 or so pendulums. Many a happy hour was spent trimming the rig to prevent this, but without success. It was as though the rig, hull, sea state and wind strength had all reached a harmonic state, and one of the ingredients had to change to break out of it. Below 4.5 knots and above 5 knots the problems would cease. Emergency windward work with the Twizzle jibs. We experimented with running one jib sheet through a block close to the clew, then making fast to the other clew. New sheets were run from the block to port and starboard sheet winches. The block averaged the load on each clew, as our jibs were not identical. The 2 jibs then lay together as one. Certainly effective enough to claw off a lee shore, but the block and all the extra string were prone to snagging during attack. Although it takes some time to prepare and set up, we found the Twizzle Rig to be the safest and most easily managed rig for downwind sailing in the trades with a small cruising crew.